Going right out of the gate.
Yep. Those are the socks that I have on right now.
Mine are pretty old and worn out. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. There we go. Is that easier than yours?
Yeah, you didn't almost break your ankle.
You get that clicking in?
You didn't steal the rubber plastic thing from your other boots?
No, I'm gonna wait.
Hey skiers, I'm Jeff, skiessentials.com.
I'm Bob, how's it going?
We also got Matt and Chris all the way down there too. A couple days ago from Pico, we did a short little video just kind of announcing the double BOAs and specifically for me the Speedmachine 130DD for 2026. As promised, we're back here at Stowe on Friday. Bob, you just put one on your foot for the first time ever.
Yep.
And just took your first run. Starting with like putting your foot in it and how it feels, the fit.
Yeah, all I did was put my custom footbed in it.
Yep, no liner molding.
Yep. No. So they fit great. You know, like this is a mid-volume 130 flex boot, so pretty much across the board I'm going to be okay in these. And yeah, as advertised, nothing too tight, nothing too loose. My left foot is a little bit smaller, and so just when you're not used to it, I mean, boots are very specific.
Yeah.
And you get used to something, and then you change it, and you can feel those differences kind of mightily.
Yep.
So like left foot feels like there's a little bit of room in there. Right foot is nice and snug.
And that's something that you feel like you could mitigate.
I've dealt with it my whole life.
Right.
Yeah.
What about like the upper cuff? You know, that's kind of the new thing here.
Yeah.
We've both experienced the lower BOA last year. I know it felt different for me. What was your experience kind of ratcheting down that top BOA?
My concern for a lot of skiers, and I think I'm in this boat too, is that third buckle up that gets your heel back in the heel pocket.
You can't do that independently.
Do that.
Yeah, sure.
So you're doing the whole upper cuff. That
Yep.
whole flap is tightening at the same time.
Yep.
And so I'm feeling more pressure than I'm used to on the top.
Interesting.
Of my shin versus the bottom.
And I have seen some comments from people that was their concern.
Yeah.
And like, for me, to be honest, my initial reaction has kind of been the opposite.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I've mostly been skiing it in a zip fit.
Right.
So I wonder if that's kind of countering a little bit of that. But I did ski it in the stock liner the other day, and I'm not having that issue, although my boots are very small.
I also imagine like the shape of your lower leg has something to do with it too.
Totally.
Where if your calf goes in at a certain spot or if it's straighter, that's going to affect how those buckles, how the cable is tightening the boot on that section.
Right.
So,
yeah, there's a lot of variables.
there's some variables for sure.
And then what about performance? I mean, you looked great.
Yeah, same thing. You know, I was talking to Matt earlier, like, and I'm sure you're sick of us talking about it, but the Kesley boot is just like, for me it's a 10 across the board.
And that's kind of that's the boot that you go off of. That's your standard.
It's my template.
Yeah.
So you know, from a performance standpoint, you're always feeling a little bit of difference. That Kesley is just a very aggressive stance.
Yeah.
Or at least I have it set up that way.
Yeah.
And this is more neutral.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a difference in terms of the rearward support, like coming out of a turn. And I'm on these Enforcer 104s, so it's a pretty strong and burly ski. So you definitely feel like not as much rearward support in this boot than a Kesley.
Yep.
But pretty close.
Okay. You know what's interesting? I feel like I'm having like a little bit of the opposite experience.
Yep.
because I skied mostly in the shadow last year, so like that's kind of my baseline.
Right.
And I feel like this has more support than that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think like just dialing in where the cable is and how tight you want it.
Yeah.
Like that, you know, that's gonna take a minute. And I'm so used to being like, Kesley, I'm in my first buckle on the bottom 2 and the second on the top 2, and like that's it, like it's dialed.
Well, and the other thing that like it makes it kind of tricky is there's no like base, there's no way to
Tell where you're at.
Yeah. So like I could be like a full rotation different than yesterday,
Right.
and I don't know.
Yeah.
And I agree 100%. It's like kind of a learning experience of like basically the resistance that I want.
Right.
You know, like how tight do I get it? Like I'm not gonna turn it until I can't turn it.
Right.
So like where is the stopping point? And that for me has been interesting. I'm gonna take a turn and ski, and then I'm gonna switch skis too. I'm doing an Enforcer 99 and then a Playmaker to get like opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take a run, then I'll switch skis, and then we'll chat again.
Jeff, you're like a veteran at dual BOA boots at this point.
Yeah, I think so. I have like 7 days.
Yeah, so it like seems like you've got a pretty good grasp on what's going on here.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting because you're coming out of a normal Speedmachine 130 with 4 buckles on each boot.
It's kind of been like 2 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, like last year I skied in the shadow predominantly. The year before, Speedmachine all the time. And then like really like a couple, like I think it was Speedmachine all the time for at least 2 years.
Yeah.
And then I started this season on Speedmachine lower BOA, upper buckles, and now for the past week I've been dual BOA.
Yeah. And you seem like you were pretty converted pretty quickly, especially with that zip fit liner in there.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure that makes the same difference as it makes in any boot, where it really, I mean, we've been finding that it really just kind of heightens the entire experience.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to call that out. And like, you know how I was saying, like, I love the way that it wraps your shin and provides consistent pressure. Like, I gotta give a little bit of credit to the zip fit too.
Right.
Because that tongue is so robust, and like, it is just, I don't know, it's like a really solid thing to push against.
Right.
So I think like that's working really well. But I did enjoy this skiing in the stock liner too. And like, truthfully, I need to put a little bit of work into the stock liner, just like heat mold it a little bit because it was a little bit tight.
Yeah.
But I really like skiing in this boot. I do not like how hard it is to get on with the zip fit. I mean, that is a it's not a, I don't want to say it's a serious issue, and it's not like something that's Nordica's fault.
Right.
But it is an issue.
Any boot. Well, it's really any boot. I mean, like,
makes it harder with the zip fit.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think we've both found, is that it just makes it a little harder to get in.
Well, for me, like specifically having the lower BOA,
yeah,
that's what's doing it, in my opinion. But I mean, the performance is fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone that's walking into a shop, a new boot, I haven't bought boots in 20 years, you know, like that skier, who's a good skier, that they're gonna, like, there's no issue with performance
for the double BOA,
for any of the BOAs.
No, I agree 100%, and I think you can make an argument. And again, like what you were saying, like this may be different for different people, but you can make an argument that there is a performance advantage.
Yeah.
And I do feel like I have felt different the past week.
I mean,
and I don't know what to say about that other than the fact that I don't have buckles on my boots.
I was thinking about it this past run down, where like skiing in this boot for me today is like sleeping in someone's guest bed.
Yeah.
You know, like you
Yeah.
leave your room, you
Yeah.
leave your comfort, you go to someone's guest bed, and I'm sure it's a wonderful bed, but it's not your bed.
Yep.
So you do have to make kind of those concessions when you're switching something kind of as intimate as a ski boot.
Yeah.
And but I'm trying to look at it through the lens of someone who's buying a boot or someone who's been in, you know, maybe they haven't been happy in boots before.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that this is an easy entry point, like not necessarily from a getting into the boot,
Yeah.
but from like, you know, from a new boot experience. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and like, so I think this was pretty unique, at least for me, and I would say really probably for anybody, because most people don't coach.
Yeah.
My first day in this boot was 7.5 hours on snow coaching.
Yeah.
And I didn't take it off once.
Yeah.
And like that for me is kind of crazy.
Well, that's because you didn't want to have to put it back on again.
Granted, that is, yes, that is a significant part of it. I don't know if you noticed, like, when we took a break yesterday.
Yeah.
Was that yesterday? Was yesterday a media day?
It was.
When we took a break yesterday, I feel like most other people took their boots off for a second.
Yeah.
Mine do not come off.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that when they come off, I'm done skiing.
I mean, that's fine. That's fair.
But like, and again, partial credit has got to go to the Zip Fit.
Yeah.
But the fact that I could ski in a brand new boot for 7.5 hours straight and be totally fine
Yeah.
is like kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like normally a new boot, I'm like going in and out of the lodge, like tweaking it.
I mean, I feel like I could go the distance in these with a brand new liner
Today.
Today.
Yeah.
Fine.
Which is impressive.
Yep.
And like you also have, I would imagine, pretty good heel retention and hold and stuff.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, I switched skis. We're going to go ski what we like to call the slow side, and we'll see what we find.
It's not very slow sometimes.
It depends on the
fast.
snow and the wind.
Yeah.
So anyways, we'll go skiing and then we'll talk to you again in a little bit. We find ourselves in the terrain park. I'm
I don't remember Emily.
I'm not psyched about hitting jumps
Why is that?
because I hurt my knee again.
That's right. That's right.
But it does feel good today. I've also, in full disclosure, I've never hit the second jump, or at least not yet this year.
All right, I'll start out of your way.
Why don't we hit the first jump and then decide on the fly?
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep.
Bob, it sounds like you have some thoughts.
Yeah. The readjustment is weird.
It's sort of a constant thing, don't you think?
We went over, you changed your skis. Yeah. I popped my BOAs.
Yeah.
Just to let my feet breathe and get some air.
Yep.
Right up to the top of the chair. And then I'm going to dial them back in. And like we were saying, you can't remember where it was.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of placing a lot of faith in your memory of how it feels before you start skiing.
Yes.
Especially if you're gonna kind of get into it.
Yeah, if you're skiing hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you're dropping into one of the top trails and your boots aren't where you think or know they are or should be, like that's kind of an issue for me. When you have the buckles, it's like, all right, I know I'm on 2. And that's where I'm at, and that's where it is, and
Yeah.
I know how it's gonna feel, and it's consistent.
Yeah, and like, your buckle's on 2, and if you want it slightly tighter, you micro adjust one little rotation.
Yeah, I mean, if that, or you just kind of deal with it being slightly less loose, but at least you know.
Yeah.
Like here, it's the not knowing that's a little unnerving.
Yeah, and I will, like we were saying earlier, like I will just speak to my experience over the past week that it has gotten easier.
I think and like also if they fit well, you shouldn't really have to undo the thing, pop the button, and go totally loose.
Right.
Like I didn't do it now, and I hadn't done it otherwise.
Right.
So
yeah, like I'm not popping mine.
Yeah.
So like when you're talking about like readjustment periods, like for me it's only if I want it a little tighter.
Right.
And that's what happens for me just kind of like throughout the day.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, oh, okay, like I could go a ratchet tighter, or like, you know, we just went through the park, which was mixed success. I don't like casing jumps, but that's fine. Yeah. And like, you know, sliding rails and stuff like that, I personally want more precision and more control. So it's interesting, don't you think?
Yes.
Like I feel like there are positives and negatives.
Yep.
And I feel like all of the negatives for me come from like the user friendliness, like the user, like all the things that you have to do. But once you get past all the things that you have to do, I do genuinely really like the way that they ski, which is like honestly surprising to me.
Yeah, I have no issues. I think that a lot of people have a valid question though of whether that is better than just having buckles.
Right.
You know, like that's kind of what, I mean, this is very triggering for a lot of people.
Yeah.
This replacement of buckles with cables.
Well, and I don't think we've really talked about it yet, but so you have a boot that is BOA upper cuff and buckle lower.
Right.
And like for me, that is very intriguing because I love the way it wraps my shin in the upper cuff.
Yep.
I strongly do not like how hard it is to get in with the zip fit.
Yeah.
So if I could have the lower open up more, or like another thing that they could do is just make the cable on the lower like an inch longer.
Do you think in bigger boots they have longer BOA cables?
I don't know, because I want to, like, I'm curious if I can I like retrofit this with a longer cable?
I can't imagine. Maybe.
I'm not asking you. I need to call Nordica.
Right.
Or I need to call BOA. How do I call BOA headquarters?
They must have an 800 number.
All right, we'll look it up later. The sun's coming out. It's beautiful.
It's a nice day.
We're gonna go find some Moguls for Bob, and then we'll talk to you again. Bob, you just skied some Moguls.
Yeah, they ski Moguls just fine.
Any noticeable performance difference from buckles, up or down?
Not really. You know, I think as usual, anything new is just gonna throw a slight,
just feels a little different.
But
yeah,
they're, you know, these boots specifically, speaking to the Speedmachine 130, are very precise and strong and capable. You know, just like BOA aside, like these boots are strong, expert level, aggressive boots.
Yeah, and like you can speak to a potential difference in performance from BOA, but I would say it's a marginal difference. Is like you said, I've always enjoyed this boot in general. It's a good boot, 100 lasts, so it's pretty comfy, but still gets like really good performance.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think, you know, just the ease of use. You know, I was talking to Matt earlier, kind of, you use your template if you use your shadow as your baseline, or me and the Kesley, you know, it's like fit, performance, and ease of use.
Yeah.
Like for me and the Kesley, it's 10s across the board. Yeah. And, you know, like these they're not as easy to use.
Right, so you got to dock a point there.
You got to dock a point. You know, they're not quite as precise or as powerful.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you're always kind of using the thing you like the best as the reference, and viewing a Speedmachine 130 dual BOA through that lens, you know, it's not a fair fight.
Yeah.
You know, you really have to start from scratch and view it from the ground up, I think.
Yeah.
And I also think it's important to note that, like, we're not making these boots. You know, like, we didn't tell manufacturers to make this. We're kind of presented with these.
We are reacting to what the market has delivered. Right.
You know, and I kind of feel like most outlets, retail or media or otherwise, are kind of getting the brunt of it from,
like,
you know,
why are you guys doing that?
Yeah,
it's like, whoa,
hey, I didn't make this thing. You know, you're just skiing it and saying what's what. But yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting and certainly polarizing conversation, and yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, no, I agree.
For nothing else, it's a good time.
Yeah. Thinking to what you were saying just now, for me, like thinking back to the shadow and like the ease of use thing, I went from the fastest person to get ready out of anybody that I ski with to 100% just definitely the slowest.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is I keep doing it.
Right. So there's got to be something there for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I seriously struggle to get these on.
Yeah.
But it's like once they're on my feet, it's for me, it's the best ski boot experience I've ever had.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a give or take, and that's why I've said it several times. I don't think zip fits are for everybody, and I don't think double BOAs are for everybody.
Yeah.
But there's something there.
And the combination clearly works for you.
For
you
me,
know, and that's what it's all
wild.
about is not,
Yeah.
and especially with ski boots, like they are as far from one size fits all
Yeah.
as any piece of like athletic gear you could find on
Yeah, I
the
mean, we
planet.
talk about skis being subjective in their
Right.
performance. Like boots are 100, like
Right.
are fully subjective.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is interesting. What do we want to do? Are we skiing more?
I mean, we gotta take another
I
run.
guess we have to go down.
Gotta
Yeah,
go down.
we're gonna ski more, and then we'll wrap this up pretty soon.
Good.
All right. Well, I failed again on my journey to not case that jump, but
You landed on your feet.
now I'm
So-
inspired. I'm gonna come out tomorrow on a Saturday and do some solo, just soul shredding.
Nice.
Yeah, really dial in those jumps. But anyways, Bob, thank you for joining me on this dual BOA journey.
It's very interesting.
It's been a journey, right?
Well, also just seeing like an entire section of the market just make a wholesale
huge-
change.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, we saw it the other day when the embargoes were lifted. It was just like
Whoa!
an explosion.
Double BOA.
And it was a lot of our first times as industry people seeing just the sheer amount of companies that are just
Everyone,
full
yeah,
in.
yeah, I know. That's maybe that's the most surprising part is that
Right.
there's just everyone is going down that path.
I think a couple of things that I noticed industry-wise, I think, is that there aren't as many low volume options. So like people that are looking for a lower volume option don't have as many choices. Those seem to be still kind of buckle related.
Well, I mean, I can understand why.
Right.
Put a lower volume, lower cuff on this thing. There's no way I'm getting in.
Maybe that's the case. You know,
it very well could be.
Maybe with like stiffer plastic, it won't bend it as much. Or I don't know. But
I'm not sure.
That hasn't come around quite yet. But certainly the mid-volume and up segments are dominated.
I'm also curious if, for me, as someone who skis in a 24.5, if it's harder for me to get in than anybody else.
It's very possible. I didn't, I only found it marginally more difficult, and I have a pretty easy time getting into.
Did you try it with Zip Fit though?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, it's a challenge.
And
So
I think the other thing I just want to bring up that a lot of people bring up is durability. You know, like you hear about this all the time, and I think people are operating under the assumption that this is the same BOA that goes on your bike shoes or your helmet or your snowboard boot.
It's quite stronger.
It's very different.
And like I think it's even quite a bit stronger than snowboard BOA.
I think it's way stronger.
Yeah,
And,
because
like,
I've seen a lot of that from like snowboarders that are like really good snowboarders don't use BOA, and there's a reason.
Right.
It's like I don't know that that's a fair comparison.
Right.
And also, like, in full disclosure and full transparency, my upper cuff BOA on my left foot has popped off twice, but not while skiing.
Right.
And like I think I'm just like hitting it against a wall or a stair or something.
Yeah.
And what's nice is it doesn't matter, you just pop it right back on.
Right.
So it actually seems pretty well designed from like a durability and like being able to fix on the fly perspective.
Yeah.
Because the first time I saw that, I was like, uh-oh. And then sure enough, it just popped right back on.
Yeah.
So
No problems.
that's all I got. You got anything else?
Not particularly.
Perfect.
You know, this is just a new world we're living in, I suppose.
Yeah, very interesting. So definitely let us know if you have any questions. I'm gonna keep skiing in them. I do want to play around with some different liners.
Yep.
You know, I'm sure the brands that we work with don't love this, but like I kind of want to see what like an Atomic Mimic liner feels like in there.
I think it's fair to swap, and a lot of them are very close in terms of how they're made. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an issue.
So we'll keep playing around with it. And yeah, let us know if you have any questions, and we'll talk to you soon. I don't take mine off yet.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna get that.
They have to warm up.
Which one?
All right, final test. Sweet, sweet.